Hi, everybody. I have no idea what the date is. Sorry about that. Anyway, it's in January. This I know for sure. And it's a Thursday, and it's the 10th, Marlene says. So it's good. I've got three questions that are really very similar to each other. Very interesting. And to answer them, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat Christina's question from Perth. And we'll see what goes on from there. These are really very valuable things from my perspective anyway. And she says, my question is related to being able to live life fully and consciously on this planet, while at the same time being able to grow and help others grow. You can almost hear the intensity there. Being human seems constantly to get in the way of being able to do both. So how can we consciously engage in life itself with others and try to grow and help others to grow, but at the same time deal with all the emotions, feelings, and other human traits we naturally and habitually display and cannot deny, hide, and erase? You see what I mean? One of the reasons why there aren't very many enlightened people on the planet is a very basic thing, and it's really hard for us to understand. We have personalities, and these personalities are exceedingly important to us because we need them rather badly to be able to make sense of this world. And the construction of these personalities are really based on our experience, whatever that is, from the time that we're born. Obviously, this is you might say very basic, but it's not that basic. And when you start thinking about it, when you don't think about it, it becomes reflexive. And then we make up our minds based on a whole lot of reflexes that we have. At least seemingly, it's as if we know what we're talking about under those circumstances. But when we start thinking about it, what we're really dealing with here is understanding that we are creating a system so that we can deal with and engage with life and the world. And at the center of that system is a personalized version of at least a relative amount of, let's say, decision-making around being a personality, an individual named, and then we engage with life as that individual named. The experience that we've had becomes really reflexive after a while. And we're basically involved with not necessarily thinking about who and what and why we are as we engage with life. And this is normal for us. And I think in a way, we're lucky that it's kind of normal for us because our attention, our focus, whatever we attend to, becomes the very thing that we spend a little bit of time on, yet can't understand that one basic premise might be more real than what our beliefs tell us we are. That's really confusing the way I said it. But look, if you focus on one thing, anything, then more energy moves towards that focus. Here's another way to look at that. If you have a reflexive response to anything, energy automatically goes to that reflexive response. Because that, even though it's reflexive, in other words, unknown to you that you're going to have it, it's reflexive. And then when it occurs, you go immediately to it. And the big thing is that we all do the same thing. We protect it because it's reflexive. It's a part of what makes us up, part of our experience, part of how we made sense of things, part of how we make sense of us. And we're constantly disturbed by anyone who attempts in any way to have us make adjustments in it, even us. We don't like making adjustments in these things. And you're absolutely right, simply because it's very comforting to feel that we engage as a form called personality. And even though we don't think about what we are, we kind of semi-think we know what we are, while our reactions and our reflexes know exactly what we are. But their most major function is to survive an onslaught of life. It seems rather weird to say that out loud. But think about it. If you have a belief that you know must be true, then you will defend that belief. If it's conscious, you can consciously defend it, and perhaps, maybe through some level of internal stretching, you can actually change some of it because you no longer believe it as much as you did before. That's the reason. It makes it easier to do that. You make up your mind about the idea that you had before doesn't quite make as much sense as it used to. And our whole life is filled with these kinds of assessments, considerations, as conscious as we can get them, or experiences that automatically make us feel like as if this is not a very good thing to do because it really doesn't make me feel good, blah, 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 things like this. And we automatically then move around to try and shape and reshape how we engage with life and with others, and how we don't pay a lot of attention to what that looks like, simply because we're busy doing nothing. We're doing a whole lot about what we think we should be doing to live life, whatever that is. And that is us. And all kinds of good stuff in there, all kinds of stuff that we consider valuable, and later on we don't. So there's no negation in that, although some stuff you would think you would rather not be happy with. But that's up to you. Oh, here's the other part. It's also up to others who have a reflexive reaction or engagement with you, and you're afraid because you've been trained that way as a child. Adults will have a response about what you do. You've been trained that other adults, no matter whether you are 105 or whatever, unless you're, I've just disappeared. There's no longer any picture of me. So hang on a second, Marlene. We are now you see how quickly our personalities can change. There's no picture whatsoever.
Okay, let me just see if you're transmitting anyway.
Okay. Excuse us, everybody, if you can hear us. I don't see anything that indicates you can, but if you can, we're just trying to see if we can fix things.
The delay?
Is the delay working?
I'm not sure.
But I have no picture, that's all.
No, keep talking, it's fine.
Okay. But I would rather have a picture than this piece right here, Marlene, if you don't mind.
About that, but rest assured that you are transmitting.
Okay, that's good. Okay, let me just continue here the best I possibly can. I wrote some stuff down here because I think this is a really important thing with respect to spiritual growth. You may or may not think it's important after you hear it, but it's important that you have the right to think it's important or not, because the value of understanding something and trying to make sense of it lies within our relationship with ourselves This is very important. So here we go. You construct a personality, and then you add to it. And in terms of spiritual growth, you may read 150 books, you might belong to an organization, you might be involved with anything. Marlene, can you change this?
No, I'm afraid if I mess with it, I'm going to cut the whole thing
Oh, I
off.
see.
So I think
Okay.
you're better to just continue.
So I'm now talking into a white thing, and I miss my wondrous face because I can watch myself and make sure I'm doing the right thing.
Sorry.
So what we're dealing with here is the most interesting thing. Our relationship with how we are is basically involved with an aspect of us that wants to maintain how we are. If you can understand that part, basically all therapists know this to be real, because you try and help somebody to think a different way, and they will not want to think a different way. They will protect themselves from thinking a different way. And you will watch the methods of engagement that they have and know full well that they're the ones that have to see their methods of engagement, not you. So, and also their therapists are also blamed for not helping them. It's really basically a matter of the individual engaging with the therapist. It's you versus them, and who's better and who's smarter at protecting how you were yesterday. This is normal in our world. It's not about therapy. It's about an engagement you have with life day to day. It is not negative. It's how you're brought up. It's how you're trained to survive the great need we all have to survive. We are a survival. Individuals are a survivor, have a survivor structure for the purpose of enabling the species to continue. It's quite amazing how functional we are in, you might say, a lot of weird ways, but it doesn't matter what you say. Your way may be weird in one way, others are weird in a different way. We all try to be as capable as possible. No matter what you're doing, you're trying to be as capable as possible. So in looking at that, then what you're really looking at is you're looking at an individual trying to make sense of what spiritual is. And oh my goodness, that is huge. Well, I'm usually focused on the Middle Eastern orientation because it makes a tremendous amount of sense when you start engaging with energy itself. The dilemma in all of this is the perception of energy. The second dilemma is, and the primary one is, no matter what you perceive, you will use a credibility quotient that you have locked up inside yourself. And that credibility quotient is not as valuable as you believe it is, but your whole life is based on it. The credibility quotient that you're looking at is, you have rules about how things should be or shouldn't be, and you have no idea that you cannot perceive how things are, rather than should be or shouldn't be, are until you're engaged in something that relates to not putting your current type of personality in jeopardy. And you know, I just said a few minutes ago that you are automatically geared for no change, unless you make the change yourself, of course. But you're geared for no change. You protect against change. That is normal. That is not negative. This is how we all are. Yet we, unfortunately, we don't pay much attention to the fact that we are like that. So when you have a personality, the first thing that happens in terms of spiritual growth is you become interested in how others have become very able. Our particular Christian background is really tough in this one because it is thought that only one person could be able, and I don't think that that one person ever thought that way. Matter of fact, he did say that you would be as able as he and even more. Boy, wouldn't that ever be wonderful? And that you can read, unless you skip over it real fast. But it wasn't about the personalities being good versus bad or right versus wrong. And we have this in our systems, our personality systems. We judge other people's ways of engaging with spiritual life the same as we judge other people's ways of living life. If you live life slightly different than somebody else and you want to protect the way you do it, then you judge them for living life the way they do. That's a good kind of aggressive way of knowing that your system is better than any other system. It's okay. It's allowed because all of us do that to some degree. So when you're involved with this, then it's very difficult for you to understand the relationship that you have. Camera's down here. The relationship that you have that has read all kinds of stuff, has listened to all kinds of, there I am, listened to all kinds of stuff, and believe without a doubt that what you've read, how you have experienced things, or how others have experienced things is the right way. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. None of us get away from this. We all have pieces and parts of this. You do the same thing with assessing other people and how they live and how they speak and why they speak that way. If their tones are off, then, you're tone sensitive. You may not know that, but you're tone sensitive and you hear the offness of it. If you're okay with understanding that they may not know that they're speaking the way they are, then you can have enough compassion and understanding to back away from your judgment. Although it's really tough if you're really good at judging. The same kind of judgment is effectively involved with you. You judge you as if you cross your particular version of a line that doesn't exist, but you believe it does. You're here trying to experience life and trying to become more sensitized, to be honest, to a higher state. So as soon as you become more perceptive of a higher state, even a little bit, that becomes something that makes you special. If I can jump 15 feet in the air, which I can't, by the way, not even with a pole or 10 poles, then I become more special because, well, it's no longer the pole jumps record, but it used to be at one time. I can remember that. But it's not that special because what I'm really saying here is the personality believes whatever it can do makes it the important one. That's not spiritual. That's kind of parapsychological. In other words, you gain access to being able to do something. Therefore, you are greater than others. Those poor slobs can't do that. Just being straight. If you have information that you've memorized out of 15 books and you're part of an organization that has those books as the most important thing, and you can speak those books and engage with others who can speak those books, that becomes a very important group. This is how we function here. This is neither good nor bad, right or wrong, but it isn't spiritual. This is very hard for us to understand. So this question is based on actual experiential engagement with another state, while at the same time trying to keep this engagement with our personality, trying to keep these rules that we use on a day-to-day basis uppermost in our mind for the purpose of being valued or devalued from another state. There's no evaluation that way. But we have been trained to think that there is. Just consider that. Don't have to believe it. Just consider it. Because we're trying to move into a place where our emotions are visible to us. Our stances are visible to us. So that we can soften down, notice that it's visible because we're just watching, and move on with our life and continue. Because wherever we put our focus, if you react to these things in a negative way, then energy comes in to become more negative. That's what energy does in our relationship with existence. We use energy on a daily basis. I'm about to say the chakra word or Zephyrothic word. These are just valves through which energy can flow for purposes that relate to these planes. It's very much a part of utilizing energy for purpose. Most of that utilization is unconscious for us. If you have a grumble inside of you and you notice it, and somebody walks and hurts your shadow, and you grumble more, you'll find that you can grumble even better than you could before. This is very fascinating. You're looking at and encouraging and recognizing a universal law. This is so real in you. But you're also at the same time connecting with the personality's orientation of saying, I have a right to grumble. That person walked on my shadow. How dare they walk on my shadow? It is well known in my unconscious that no one should walk on my shadow. Or you walked on your shadow because you couldn't allow yourself not to grumble, because personality is protecting the grumble modes that you have learned, not negatively, that would help you in your process of engaging with life in a very valuable way, because that's your training. So training is not negative. It's a method that you would use, whoever, because it all changes. 8 billion people, we've all got different trainings, relatively speaking. And here we are helping the training to remain, because it makes us feel comforted. It's a reminder that, gollies, we're like our trainers. That is not a negative thing to me, but it does mean that we do not notice something that's actually occurring. And how could we possibly notice if we can't perceive the energy moving in that direction? That's only one thing. And because we're intelligent enough to allow ourselves to be well trained, it is really an act of love to follow the training of those who have trained us. So we're actually loving without knowing we're loving. Sometimes it doesn't feel good. Sometimes it feels okay. Sometimes it just makes us feel alone. I mean, we are talking about shadows here. And I'm not talking about the psychological shadow. I'm talking about somebody walking on a shadow. Sometimes it's really cursory. And it's obvious. You can get to see it quickly. Sometimes it's not that clear. Sometimes it's very subtle, very difficult to understand and deal with. But we're smart enough to maintain a relationship with a form that is there to enable us to survive. In our maturing natures, because change is inevitable, our natures are there. And in the Hindu orientation, they would say, I believe they would call it prakriti, the energy that is close to nature, that you use all the time for the purpose of engaging with life, so that you can maintain a form that looks like you, acts like you, speaks like you, walks like you. And that is not considered negative, it's just considered a way to be that you have discovered and protected all through your life. It's not uncommon and certainly not negative. But here's the deal. Suddenly you begin to perceive energy in you. Well, okay, now here we go. We've already organized in our reflexive responses in life, at least to the best of our ability, what we think we should be doing under a certain set of circumstances. So that's an automatic. Like an automaton, we reflexively engage. Some people engage overtly, others internally. They try to hide how they are responding because that's been uncommonly helpful in their life. And that's part of their development, part of how they've been trained to grow. There's nothing wrong with this. Once you begin to be able to perceive that, it's like looking at a movie. I know I said that before, but if you're looking at a movie, you can be pulled into the emotion of the movie. I think most of us, if we're really honest about it, have been at least touched a little bit by a movie. But here you are. You're a real processing organism, a real processing organism, no cellulose in you. You're engaging directly with you all the time. And you're automatically validating you. Because basically, you're validating the whole way, your whole schema of how you believe life should be. And you are at the center of that particular self-validating system. As you grow, you begin to notice that's only one part of you. And the trick in this is just to notice. But just a minute, we've been trained to judge, assess, come up with a reason, how bad it is, how good it is, how wrong it is, how right it is, whatever it may be. And we do this reflexively because this is, the way to do things. But now you're learning to perceive that there is a reality different than the one that is so-called reflexive. And that reality is a part of you as well. Now, here you go. Now, Christina wants to know, basically she's saying, it's hard for me to separate these. Because on the one hand, it's supposed to be spiritual. On the other hand, I see myself doing these things, and then I have to come up with a reason for this. And that's not watching. That's being part of the movie. You watching, you don't have to come up with any kind of chastisement whatsoever or any kind of elevation. Oh, you'll notice them. They'll be there because you'll be noticing more. If the more you watch, the more you notice how the reflexes occur in you for the purpose of survival here on these planes. But whoa. We're talking about spiritual growth now, aren't we? Or are we? Yeah. They've got to be together. So to be okay with you, to have compassion for you, to have a realization that you're an organism living in a process of development, no matter what that development may be in your mental or emotional facilities, aspects of the personality. Whatever you believe your goals should be and how they should be and why you cannot be them or are them, one or the other. No negativity there. You will slowly find that you are interfering with allowing yourself to be okay with you. Wow. Can't be that simple. If you begin to notice energy moving in you, it's a practice that can enable you to watch better. All right, stop there for a second. If you watch better, you see better. Out come the rules. They're in behind you, left side, right side, good side, bad side. And if you do not act like this under these circumstances, therefore you are not protecting you. And often there's no need to protect you. It's not you you're looking to protect. It's your personality's reflexive responses you're attempting to protect. Okay. Let's be okay with that. Then get on with life. See, watch, continue. Yeah, but just a minute. I need to have at least 5 or 6 reactions. I need to value it. I need to assess it. And if I come up on the short end of the stick, I need to find out the reasons why. And I really need to know that it wasn't me that really started it. It was them. Them who? I don't care. It doesn't matter. All I said right there is, if you have this kind of background, you are protecting the background of kind of a love contract between your trainers and you. You'll often even act them out and you'll never know that that's true. Is it okay to act them out? Absolutely. Why are you acting them out? Different question. If you act them out, you're just watching to see if you act them out. Oh, I act them out. Stop. Move forward. Go on, do something else. When I first started doing this, I thought, I apologize to me. Wow. Why? Because it stood in the way of allowing me to move on and go forward. There are things we all know we do. I don't know, with a little bit of thought, maybe you can figure that one out. You don't need to judge it. You're well trained. So is everybody. None of us are not well trained. Even the poorest of us, the most miserable of us, are well trained. All right then. If we're well trained, does that mean you can't train to do something else? I hate to use golf analogies, although I'm going to use it anyway. Maybe I don't hate it that badly, but it's really easy to engage with this one. You walk out and for 10, 15, 20 years, you play golf and never had a lesson. You play pretty bad golf. Or you might play very good golf, relatively speaking. Somebody says to you, why don't you take a lesson? You'll play better. So you take a lesson. And the person shows you how to swing, and all you have to do is practice it. But remember, you've been practicing these other ways. So if you practice this new way, it's so different that you're going to have to practice a lot. Not the same as you practiced for the last 10, 15 years, in some way it's okay, but not as helpful. But you'll miss playing the way you did until you can see that maybe doing it slightly different will only mean shifting what you do a little bit, because it's process. But sooner or later, you'll begin to notice, literally, when you do something that could be shifted. You'll be the one that decides that, because you're the one who defends not doing it. It's quite interesting how determined we are not to grow. And that is absolutely okay. That's why there aren't that many enlightened people there. There, where? Planet Earth. Not a bad thing. We are what we are. I hate saying that, but nonetheless, there it is. And we do the best we can. So what happens then if more energy comes into you to show you more of what you do? Because that, in my opinion, is profoundly actually how it works. Well, first of all, you can understand that you would increase your defensive system of the form that you had before. Now, that is not negative. That's normal. But also with it comes the ability to possibly be okay with shifting a bit, and emphasis on the bit, because it is process. Now comes up your rules. There's only two ways to deal with life, and that's the right way or the wrong way. That's just a rule. It's not a reality. This is good versus bad. If 100,000 people think this is good, then it's good. But that 100,000 won't think that this other thing is very good. They'll think it's bad. Has to be wrong. Try that statement out on you and your life, you and your personality's engagement with how things are or are not. See whether it fits. You may find that it might fit. This is what makes it very difficult for each of us individuals to engage with something internally different than what occurs most often in us to evaluate ourselves or to protect ourselves in the position that we have that is comforting to us. Comforting is a very important word. It does not include an assessment called devaluation. It's comforting. It's okay if you notice that this is what comforts you. When you do notice, you may want to shift a bit or attempt to. Little steps make big journeys. Very important thing. And it moves towards having understanding for others as well as yourself. Nobody can jump right in and shift a whole bunch of stuff. Well, lots of people can say they have, but the consistency of maintenance is really not as appropriate as they believe. Beliefs are very interesting things. They hold you in positions and they enable you, often at the same time. you have the capability of moving forward emotionally, mentally, and you have the capability of holding yourself in a position because you believe a certain way and a certain logic has to be real. With respect to other states, no negation occurs. So patience is huge. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many people trying to be helpful to us in our relationship with spiritual development. And personalities are so important to us. Please don't devalue them. Or we wouldn't have so many people that have a belief and have it for hundreds of years and are determined to hold the belief so tight they can't learn from what's being spoken. No offense there. It's what we all do. It's what we do. If you take 100 years of a human life, we do it at least for 100 years. Most of us don't make it for 100 years, but some do. And the most wonderful thing about that 100 years is that many of us move into those years and learn from some of those years and eventually become cognizant of the fact that it is process that relates to spiritual growth. I think this is I wrote a lot of stuff here that I might have talked about. This is at the core of the importance of the question that not only Christina asked, but also Michelle asked in terms of spiritual process is a lot of observing, positive attitude, and service. What happens when trying very hard to follow these principles, we feel empty, as if it's not working. Wow, what a question. If you have an engagement with the personality, yours, and you're uncomfortable with doing something different than what you normally do, accept that we normally do the things that you're talking about to some degree, but somehow we judge that they don't measure up. You know how that works. In all of us, we're always trying to measure up, whatever that may be, mentally, emotionally, physically, verbally. Then what we do is we focus on not being able to measure up. What do you think gets stronger? Talking about the same things. Our ability to notice not measuring up gets really strong. Now we have strong reactions. So let's say it goes the other way, and you're able to measure up relative to a person's view. And it has to be your own individual view, because you are the one who's growing through you. Now, I don't care what you believe. Same thing is true. But all of a sudden, after being positive and have a positive attitude, observing, and we're service-oriented, whatever that means, and we notice energy moving through us is different than us creating it and transmitting it to a person. That is a really big difference. But nonetheless, notice that might be happening. Then what happens? Our personality isn't used to being at the beck and call of another state. It's at the beck and call of our own way of engaging the way it has before. It leaves a little opening there. It's like a pause. It's like a lens. And dust is taken off the lens and it feels empty. It's not as comforting, that's what it really is, as how you were doing things before. Why would it be? It's different. Not so simple, is it? Engaging with places inside yourself but help you to understand you better without judgment. Recognizing it is process. It's not based on one thing versus another. The steps are little by little, just by paying attention. Try to soften down the reaction, because if it's increasing the reaction, more energy will go to it. That's your soul's job, to help you to see what's there. It does that by helping you to see what you are inside without any negativity whatsoever. But you protect yourself through judgment or assessment. And you can do that also through understanding. Wow. If you protect yourself through understanding, then it may be okay. Yeah, I saw that. Then someone says, you know what, you did that. And you say, yep, I saw it. Now let me get on with my life. Go forward the best you can. Do what you can. Remember its process. You don't have to be the judge of all judges. Doesn't make any sense. Nonsensical. Not even rational. But there is a rationale emotionally, because it is like setting up a comfort zone, and anything not in that zone, your personality's zone of personalized reflection, naturally and normally, then is uncomfortable. It's what we all face every day, every moment of our growth. We don't face it if we've memorized the right thing to say, whatever it may be, and see only the things that we believe. We need to see, the more judgmental you are about other people, the more right you are. It's of no interest whatsoever. But boy, it might make you feel good. It doesn't help you in your internal growth. But here's the thing you could learn from that. When you're judging, ask yourself why. What is it that I'm not thinking is important? Oh, it's different than what I think. Okay, yeah, so many people think differently. What is it that they think that disturbs me? Don't devalue it. Consider it. Don't have to agree with it, but consider it. It'll help you to understand them. They're not trying to be this or that, or they could be. But it may help to help you understand you without the need to be miserable or to be elevated. Because no matter how much we grow, there's still more. And we see things from the bottom up. We see it from where we are, and we're in a movement towards seeing broader than we can currently. Broader than we can currently is quite interesting. And the last statement I'll make about this, because the question incurs this particular kind of a response. It's hard for us to understand that energy, once again, can go through us and we're not in charge of it. This is not the nature of our personality's cognition. We don't understand consciously this particular way of thinking. You can't understand it very well until you can actually perceive it occurring. Then you ask questions like, where is it going? Why is it going through there? One of these chakras, brow, heart, brow, crown. crown, solar plexus, I don't care, whichever. You're a huge form of consciousness. Is it because I need help there? Well, it could be. Is it because someone needs help there? There is so many unknowns. The only way you can even have a smattering of understanding initially is to recognize that it's occurring and recognize that you don't have all the answers. And that allows you to leave room for some that may occur to you. It may occur as if it's just some form of intuition. It may occur as if it's a conscious perception right on the body, almost physically, except that almost physical is off the body. Maybe astrally, emotionally, you may perceive it somehow in your mind. But all of these stages are just stages. It's like learning how to understand what other people are saying in a language you're not used to. And you can't speak well, let alone understand well, but you're doing the best you can. And that will be helpful. Remember, process is long from some people's perspective. Others, they have an answer. Don't go about hurting their answers, whatever you do, even if they are miserable to you. Here's the reason why. It's what they're depending on. They depend on that answer to be right so that they can feel comforted and won't give up their version of spiritual growth. These are just ideas that maybe might be helpful. You've got to think them through for yourself, as you know. And, as I say, you don't have to agree with them. See where they fit for you. Perceiving energy that is flowing in us all the time. Is helpful if you're trying to understand the idea of how energy can flow through you, because you can begin to perceive it. I really wish you all well with that. Couldn't ask for more for you. Thank you very much.